Alright, hey guys, what's up? It's Kyle here with part 2 of how I got into wrestling and became a wrestling fan. So picking up where I left off in part 1, I was kind of talking about the Attitude Era. Yeah, so the whole Attitude Era thing was just kicking off really strong. It was really, really hot. During this time too, my brother was like really heavy into by '96-ish. My brother was getting really, really heavy into ECW, and he got me into ECW. When he was getting really hot into it. ECW was regardless of what people may say about ECW, how the philosophy of ECW and the things they did, they ruined wrestling, they killed wrestling, they were the death of wrestling. Or, and back in those days where, you had people that were split between Nitro and Raw, but when it came to ECW, it's like, it's not for us, they're crap. ECW was hot. In my opinion, I think ECW, I would consider ECW an indie show. Indie wrestling or independent wrestling, which is a word that's thrust around a lot in this generation, day and age of wrestling. I would consider ECW to be an independent wrestling, indie wrestling during the Monday Night Wars back in the 90s. And for it to have been indie wrestling, ECW was hot. Like, to me, I think that was, ECW was the hottest indie wrestling show, I think, in my opinion, of all time. Of all time. That's just me. I have been to 2 ECW events back in 1998 as a kid. I think I was about maybe 9, going on 10-ish during this time. It was myself, my brother, and my uncle. The 3 of us went. And I can tell you this here, ECW, the original ECW, that stuff was awesome. Being a fan is like no other. I mean, that ECW had a cult following fan base. I still think to this day ECW has had the fans of ECW were the greatest group of fans in the history of professional wrestling. When you're in the ECW crowd, in a small little arena, but you're in the ECW crowd, you felt like a badass because you felt like you were part of the show. Whereas, like, if you go to a Nitro, if you go to a Raw event live, you're just there, you enjoy the wrestling or whatever, and you do some chanting, some boos. When it came to ECW, it was like you could cuss, you could flip up your middle finger, you could tell the wrestlers what you thought about them. I mean, it was cool. I mean, they make you. I mean, the ECW, the atmosphere that it set, and being in that crowd, you felt like a badass. You felt like you could jump over the rail, take a chair, and smack one of the wrestlers with it. And Paul Heyman let it be okay. You're like, it'll be okay to smack a guy in the chair. He'll let you do it. And then the crowd could just be like, they'll pop for you. They're like, yeah, you're awesome. You felt like you could do those things, even though you probably couldn't. But I'm just saying, it made you feel the atmosphere that it set. You just felt like you could do that. So that was another great, awesome experience. I'll never forget. You kind of look a little bit past that, like say 2 years. WCW is dead. ECW is right around the corner of being dead. One of my buddies, longtime friends, Mark, was really getting heavy into independent wrestling in 2000. And this is in the year 2001. He got into independent wrestling. One of the things he got me hooked on in independent wrestling was IWA, Mid-South Championship Wrestling. And with IWA, it's like I loved it. The first person that got me hooked in terms of a wrestler that caught my attention in IWA was the scruffy looking dude from Chicago known as CM Punk. Some of you guys may know of this because I did make a video a couple of years ago explaining how I became a fan of CM Punk and how I followed him for years and years and years. CM Punk was one of the first guys I saw in IWA. From him to Chris Hero, Daniel Bryan, Christopher Daniels. And since then on, I followed those guys from then all the way to, to Ring of Honor to now in WWE and TNA and whatnot. So Mark is another one too I have to really thank for expanding upon my wrestling in terms of independent wrestling. You know, and looking at other things besides the mainstream stuff that's on TV. You know, opening my mind to other things. So I really got to give him credit for that. You know, IWA, from IWA, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, FIP Pro Wrestling, all Pro Wrestling, that sucks. I wouldn't recommend that. Our Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor was amazing. Freaking Ring of Honor was on fire. You know, and then there was another little company that was starting to come up to the ranks. Well, not come up to the ranks, but starting out, wanted to be mainstream. They were known as Total Nonstop Action, known as TNA, or now Impact Wrestling, whatever you preferably choose to call it. TNA was cool. TNA was like, you know, at the time that TNA was starting out, WWE was still at their peak. You know, even though the following of their competition was gone, they were still at their peak. They were still must-watch TV. TNA was kind of cool because TNA, the earlier TNA, it was like independent wrestling, but on TV, like on mainstream TV. Like it was easier to catch TNA and follow TNA than say some of the other independent shows like a Ring of Honor or an IWA back in those earlier years. So TNA was kind of cool because TNA was just, like I said, it was like an underground wrestling. If you want to see like some wrestling matches and some great wrestling, but like kind of underground, TNA was that option. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's like taking independent wrestling, but independent wrestling that was easier to follow and it was just underground and it was on TV and easier to follow and find. So that was really cool. And, you know, then you fast forward now, TNA still exists and still stands. I'm still a fan. You know, I still watch TNA. I'm still a fan of WWE. I still watch WWE. I still watch Ring of Honor and IWA. I still watch IWA. I still watch Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I just got back into PWG like last year because I hadn't watched that like in a while. So I just got back into Pro Wrestling Guerrilla last year and still I'm a fan of it now. So, you know, just lots of different, you know, wrestling stuff that shows and stuff that, you know, that I watch. Still am a big wrestling fan. Always have been. Always will be. I hope you guys enjoyed my story, how I got into wrestling, and if I explained anything in the detail or not too much detail, let me know. I'll reply in the comment box below. So I hope you guys enjoyed my story. That's pretty much it, really. Like I said, I'm still a wrestling fan. Always will be, forever will be, till the day I die. Do yourself a favor, like this video, hit that subscribe button, peace, and leave a comment, of course. Peace.